Hello, everyone, and welcome to All Things Politics. Let's get right to it. Donald Trump is in the news again. Well, honestly, he stays in the news, but this report is based upon something just coming on my timeline. Donald Trump was ordered by a federal judge to restore slavery exhibits removed from George Washington's Pennsylvania home. This comes as no surprise because Donald Trump of late has been in the act of removing certain African American historical exhibits and things of that nature. For more clarity, I want to bring in a clip I have. But before I do, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to All Things Politics. We'd appreciate your viewership and participation in this channel's growth. So we want to thank you ahead of time for being involved in the content that we bring to you, the people. But before I show the clip, but based on these reports and legal actions in 2026, the second Trump administration has taken steps to remove or alter exhibits related to slavery and African American history in national parks and public federally controlled sites. These actions are part of a directive referred to as Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History. And this is a secretarial order 3431. Excuse me. This order aims to remove what the Trump administration defines as decisive or anti-American narratives from public spaces. Some of those removals are changes from 2025 into this year, 2026, include president's house sites, one in particular, George Washington, his mansion plantation. In 2026, it was deemed by the Trump administration that whatever was there needed to be removed. I think in particular, some type of panel or placard that was up that spoke about or spoke to an enslaved person there who basically told the story that George Washington, I think her name was Ona Judge. She was an enslaved Black woman who escaped to tell about the atrocities at that mansion plantation. But this is one, that is only one of many acts of removal or acts to remove African American history, or more like slave history or history about slavery in America, from these federally controlled sites. Again, for greater clarity, I'm going to bring in this clip, and this clip is courtesy of the political dockets. Okay, so let's bring this clip in.
Once again are pushing back on the Trump administration this morning. A federal judge ruling yesterday that the Trump administration must temporarily return displays that discuss George Washington's ownership of slaves to Washington's former home in Philadelphia. The preliminary injunction comes after the city of Philadelphia sued the Interior Department and the National Park Service after they removed the displays last month. Want to bring in Bloomberg White House correspondent Jeff Mason, also with us, Democratic strategist Basil Smikle, and Republican strategist Susan Del Percio, both, thankfully, are MS Now political analysts. So, Jeff, I'll start with you here on set. With this ruling, the judge writing in part, quote, as if the Ministry of Truth in George Orwell's 1984 now existed. With its motto, ignorance is strength, this court is now asked to determine whether the federal government has the power it claims to disassemble historical truths when it has some domain over historical facts. That's just part of what Judge Roth wrote.
Imagine a quiet morning in Philadelphia. Federal employees arrive at a historic site not with preservation tools, but with crowbars. They begin prying metal plaques off a cement wall, plaques that tell the story of the 9 people enslaved by George Washington at the nation's first executive mansion. This isn't a scene from a fictional dystopia. It is a documented event that took place in January 2026.
Again, this is one of the issues being brought into the news or spoken about. This federal judge did bar or block the Trump administration from removing those significant exhibits or that evolved around a concern slavery in America, but especially slavery slavery having to do with a founding father, George Washington. And again, that piece that was brought up that they spoke about had to do with the president's house site in Philadelphia. Again, the slave that was able to get out or escape from slavery at the George Washington Mansion plantation name was Ona Judge. And were it not for Ona Judge, some of the atrocities taking place on that plantation owned by George Washington would have probably not gotten out. All right. That said, there are other issues that the other exhibits, that the Trump administration is attempting to remove or have removed from other sites. I'll give you another one, and then we'll continue on sharing what we know, what we researched and found in regards to the Trump administration removing exhibits and things of that nature. Another is the national park signage nationwide. It was or concerned the removal of signs and displays in national parks, focus on negative aspects of American history. And that's what Trump or the Trump administration labeled it as negative, aspects of American history. And I take it that then Donald Trump or the Trump administration wants to erase certain aspects of American history as much as it does African American history. And that's it. Let's get back to this piece.
It represents a fundamental collision between executive power and the institutional standards of American history. Today, we examine why a federal judge just invoked George Orwell to stop what she called a ministry of truth in the heart of the birthplace of democracy.
Now, one thing about All Things Politics 26, we discuss or we make reference to George Orwell's book, 1984. Wow. What the saying goes, art imitating life, or is life imitating art? This book, if you read it from front to back, you will see not just similarities, but you will see the actual taking place of a police state, a fascist government, people being controlled by technology, people being told to forget certain aspects of history, people being told that they will be controlled whether they like it or not. And for those who are not willing to go by what those empowered deem certain rules and regulations, they will be carted off to detention somewhere, where a lot of us can't answer that question, because fact of the matter is a lot of people as of today have been detained and deported. Some, no one knows where they are. Okay, back to this piece.
To understand how our democratic norms are being tested in the courts right now, please subscribe and join our analysis of the changing landscape of American power. Okay, let's play this clip.
Ending with, it does not. The fact that a judge is invoking 1984, I think, in this political moment might speak to some folks who are already pretty freaked out by some of the things that they've seen from this administration. Right. And yet, how is the Trump administration responding?
So far, not really saying much, but I think you're right to start by focusing on that. And also worth noting that the judge was appointed by Republican President George W. Bush. Yeah. And then citing this dystopian novel as a way of expressing A, the outrage, but B, that the Trump administration did not have the legal right to do this. And it is sort of in line generally with something that the Trump administration and President Trump with that executive order has wanted to do, which is just to make things look nicer about U.S. history, even though there are parts about U.S. history which obviously don't look so nice.
And that is, I think, the case with the Trump administration, but especially that of Donald Trump. His mindset is to wipe clean the slate of disagreeable American history or negative American history, that history which shines a light on its atrocities, its enslavement of people, and not only that, but just its treatment of people of color. It should come as no surprise that this is taking place. Look at what's going on in the country as we speak. Another exhibit that Trump has focused on and has had removed, if I'm calling that correctly, is Harper's Ferry National Historic Park in West Virginia. Abolitionist John Brown's 1859 raid against slavery. There was an exhibit there. Trump had that removed. He didn't agree with it. So that then goes to say he does not agree with how American history is depicted. And if it's left up to him, if it's his call, certain aspects of American history as well as African American history will be erased or covered over. This is what we are seeing take place today in the Trump administration.
Yeah.
And that's not something that he's happy to talk about.
I even think back to our President's Day coverage, the ways that we talk about presidents who were great, but also had some not great moments. I mean, this is...
The story of American power is often told through its monuments, but the most significant recent development in the rule of law involves the physical dismantling of one. Last week, the National Park Service began removing displays at the President's House site in Philadelphia. These exhibits were not just informational signs, they were the result of a decade of community-led efforts to acknowledge a paradox at the heart of the American founding. The site commemorates where George Washington and John Adams lived during the decade Philadelphia served as the capital, but it also specifically honors the 9 enslaved individuals who lived there under Washington's roof. The removal was not an administrative whim, but the direct consequence of Executive Order 14253, titled Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History. This order directed the Department of the Interior to scrub national sites of content that might inappropriately disparage Americans from the past.
Or shine a negative light on America's past history. Another one of Trump's attempts to remove African American history or to erase certain aspects of American history is that of Fort Pulaski National Monument in Georgia. Now, in September 2025, the National Park Service were ordered to remove a famous Civil War era photo. And most of us know this photo. Most of us can recall, once I mention it, this photo that we're speaking about in particular is called the Scourged Back. It depicts the scarred back of enslaved person, Peter Gordon. This is also a photo that a lot attached with what they call the pamphlet, the Willie Lynch letter. This photo is used in so many different aspects. This photo is ingrained in the minds of many, not just black, but white as well. Again, this erasure of, I think, pertinent African-American history as well as American history is deplorable, to say the least, to say the least.
In practice, this meant the removal of over a dozen displays flagged by a July 2025 review. The response from the judiciary has been nothing short of extraordinary. U.S. District Judge Cynthia Roof, a Republican appointee of George W. Bush, issued a preliminary injunction to stop the removal. Okay, let's play this clip.
Humanity at its finest, we have our good moments, our bad moments, and we have to engage with all of them in order to move forward and make progress. And yet, Basil, this administration's push to remove parts of the nation's history, reinstall other things like Confederate statues. I mean, what does it all say about where we are and the kind of America that they're driving toward?
Well, I think for starters, it says that America is on a different, the movement in America is different, and it is being engineered. It is being pushed forward by this Trump administration and its ideas or ideology about what American history should represent or depict. I'm going to throw another one out there. The Smithsonian Institute review. The Trump administration, it instructed the Smithsonian to review its exhibits, to also remove woke content with focus on removing or revising displays that deal with systematic racism. The country's history is under attack. All right. It is under attack. Make no mistake about that. Also, there's this thing about plantation education. Is federal funding. Plantation education is federal funding was cut to the Whitney Plantation in Louisiana because it focused exclusively on the history of slavery from the perspective of the enslaved. And so you can just imagine how Trump feels about that, or how he sees such exhibits in terms of affecting the American history he wants to be depicted, the American history that he wants to be remembered. All right. The erasure or the covering up of African American history to make to sanitize the idea of what American history should be, especially in the eyes of Trump, of the Trump administration, is in full effect. This is something for us all to think about, because it won't stop here. It will not stop here at just eradicating or erasing African American history. All right, it will proceed, and in that I mean it will end up spilling over to some other ethnic group who has a particular historical contribution or effect on the United States of America, its history, to say the least. This is just crazy stuff.
Well, it's not just what we say now. It's actually something that I was taught even when I was in elementary school, that history is written by the winners. So Donald Trump is using the executive authority, skirting the law or disobeying the law, to engage in this kind of activity, the ripping down of monuments, of these plaques and narratives about America's history. But I also want to make a point that I think is equally, if not more important, that we're talking about plaques and monuments being taken down, but we also need to remember that this is also being mirrored in textbooks.
In a ruling.
All right. That was a great point. This is also being mirrored in textbooks. So that then means that the textbooks or history books or America's history books will be rewritten. Those who have the power control everything, and that would include how history is told, how it's shared, and how it is depicted. All right. That being said, this is All Things Politics. Please take care of yourselves and each other.